Prairie Yard and Garden is a production of the University of Minnesota Morris in cooperation with Pioneer Public Television. Closed captioning is provided by Mark and Margaret Yankel Julien in honor of Shalom Hill Farm, a nonprofit rural education retreat center in a beautiful prairie setting near Windham in southwestern Minnesota. Shalom Hill Farm, shalomhill.org.
Many families long for a weekend at the cabin during the summer months. This enjoyable activity has its challenges to keep the gardens looking good with only weekend care. Years that are dry prove especially challenging to keep the plants in prime condition. Join me on Prairie Yard and Garden as we learn how one couple has met the challenges of maintaining a summer garden at the cabin. Welcome to Prairie Yard and Garden. You know, many people, many Minnesotans enjoy coming to the lake in the summer. It's one of those special activities that we Minnesotans enjoy. And I'm today at the home of Mark and Corrine Lewis, who live on Ashby on Pelican Lake. And we're going to interview them and talk about living at the cabin during the summertime. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Thank you.
Give me a little background on this setting.
A number of years ago, I won't tell you how many, but 10 is the real number, we came up here to visit a friend who was celebrating a monumental birthday, and they happened to actually live on this lake. In fact, they actually live now next door to us. Actually, what happened was we stayed a little bit longer, I stayed with them, and he said, you know what, there might be a cabin next door for sale. Well, 2 weeks later, it came up for sale. And we'd seen it, we liked it, we liked the lake, we had a good time on the lake. I actually grew up on a different Pelican Lake, the Pelican Lake in Otter Tail County, just next door, Larry. And every weekend I was down there. I had 3 aunts that had cabins on that lake. So we went from one to the next and water skied, fished, just hung out, had a grand time. And so here I was on a Pelican Lake now that actually had pelicans.
Uh-huh.
We have about 40 pelicans that live on the lake during the summer. And during migration in the spring, sometimes there's over 200 pelicans that stop here on their way to someplace else. And so we found this cabin, and it was affordable. And so we just took it over, and we've made all sorts of changes on it. New siding, new roof, added windows, new shed, new deck. And what we found out was that the cabin wasn't additional work, because what had happened in our Twin Cities home is that became almost an albatross. It was like, oh no, I got to do this again. Oh no, I got to do that again. But as it turns out, with neighbors from actually Eden Prairie, where we lived at the time, being our next door neighbors, and 2 years later, the cabin next door came for sale, and another group of neighbors bought that one. So we ended up having, I don't know, a coalition, if you will. We call it the compound, Eden Prairie North.
I see.
And so we've worked on projects together. We've re-roofed roofs together. We've built decks together. We've re-sided together. We've just had a grand time together. And it's therapy up here. It would have been drudgery working at home. So it's been a great experience for us.
Well, for those of us who don't own that cabin, the mindset is, well, I don't want to take care of 2 lawns and 2 flower gardens and all those things that are accompanied with 2 sets of property. Did you find that to be a burden?
Actually, no. My wife has been a gardener for forever, I guess. And so all of the stuff that we had in our gardens at our home in Eden Prairie were perennials. So they would always come up, you know, you'd have to put a little bit of bark in it. But really, they took care of themselves. We had some shaded areas, so, you know, with mulch, you didn't have to worry about the rain not coming because, you know, that kept the water in. And so that turned out to be not such a problem. We had some deck plants, but depending on how much time we were going to be spending up here or down there, we'd get neighbors to help out. And up here, the neighbors here will water our deck plants if they need to be watered, if they're up here. So we've been pretty lucky in terms of being able to maintain all of our plants regardless of if they're perennials or annuals.
Well, as I look at this property, one of the things that caught my attention immediately is the steep bank. And so many people who have that have grass there and fight with the lawnmower.
Yeah. We had that same issue here. It was lawn grass right down to where it wouldn't grow anymore. There's some boulders, some rocks on the shoreline. Along the shoreline, we were getting thistle, and then my wife was always after me to do something with the bank because she was afraid I was going to get hurt. I had to stand at the top of the bank and hang onto the mower and let it down, go from the bottom and push it up. And on the other side of our stairway to the lake, it was especially steep. And it was really, really dangerous. And I know that, you know, if proper shoreline management says you should have a buffer between your lawn and the water to filter out all of the chemicals and whatever would come off of the land. And so I started talking to Greg Lillimon, our county shoreline management guy. And then he said, you know what, Mark, you really ought to contact the DNR. So I contacted the DNR in Glenwood, and the people there were just excellent in helping us put together a plan. And we actually got a grant from the DNR. And part of that whole grant thing was you had to come up with lots of volunteers to plant. So what we did is we actually rodeoed. It's not Roundup. It's a more or better way to kill along a lake shore. We rodeoed the entire bank and killed it all off. At least we thought we killed it all off. And then we put burlap down, staked that in, and then we started planting. So we had 10 friends, relatives over here. We had a big planting party. It took us about a day and a half to plant it. And so we would cut the burlap, and then we'd plant our plants. So we've got all sorts of grasses, shrubs, little tiny bushy trees, and it's turned into a wonderful thing.
Did you have input on what kind of plants would grow there, or do they use some plan that they have of knowing what are the native plants for this area?
Well, actually, there's a website. The DNR website has a plant encyclopedia. And you get to this website and you click on the county that you live in. And then you can pick, okay, do I want vines? Do I want trees? Do I want shrubs? Do I want grasses, flowers? And where am I going to grow them? Am I going to grow them in an aquatic environment, a moist upland environment, or a dry upland environment? So you've got these choices. Then how big do you want these things to be? And what color flowers do you want to have? For our county, I think it's like 62 different kinds of flowers are native to Grant County. Unfortunately, a lot of the stuff that's been planted along roadsides, in fields, is not native to the county. It might not even be native to the state, but yet it's proliferating. Most of the things on the bank we planted, you know, we tried to find stuff that would bloom all the time and was kind of the right height. And the flowers bloom from before the snow goes until after the frost comes. There's always something blooming, and it's not just one thing, it's multiple things, as I think we'll be able to see a little bit later.
Okay. Well, how many actual plants did you put in the ground?
Oh, I think we put in about 3,500.
Ooh, I can see why it's got to be a party.
Yeah. Cutting that burlap isn't easy either, but it was worth it.
Well, Mark, I'd like to take a look at the effort you put into this real steep bank. Can we go and look at that?
Well, why don't we do that?
Well, Mark, I can see that this was really a steep bank.
Yes.
And you put in a retaining block here to start the process?
Yep, we actually talked to our shoreline management guy, and he said, yeah, you could do that, no problem. So we did that, and that ended up being the barrier between the native to the county and domestic or non-native plants, I guess you'd say. But it's so steep. We wanted to take a little bit of the steepness out, but once you get over that bank, I think you can see it's still really steep. And I don't know if you can see it from here, but we had a piece of driftwood. It's like a tree. It's like a 12-inch diameter tree that we put in also to kind of mitigate the steepness of the bank.
Well, I noticed that you got some unique little flowers. The one here, the blazing star.
The blazing star, it's just beautiful. It's purple, and it's an interesting plant because it blooms at the top and then blooms going down the stem. And as you can see, it's just gorgeous color.
In these situations, typically you put in a fair number of grasses?
Lots of grasses, a lot of blue stem. And the interesting thing about the grasses is the roots go down about 8 feet. So any grasses we're planting on this bank are going to go right down to the water table, which is the level of the lake. So the lake is going to water the plants for us.
And how long has this been in?
It's been in really 2 years and about 6 weeks. We put it in on June 15th of 2009. Now the first year we did water, but we have not watered in 2010 and 2011. I mean, we get rain in bucketfuls this year.
Yep. Well, and obviously the plants are established well enough
Yeah.
that you haven't got any erosion problems.
No erosion problems, none whatsoever. And before I was worried about it. Now the lake is up 1.5 feet higher than normal this year. 1.5 feet, which is a lot. So we have lost a minimal amount of shoreland there, but we've got all sorts of plants there now that basically stopped the erosion. The dogwoods in particular have this matted kind of root system, and they send out tentacles, but the mat really holds the soil. And you can trim the dogwoods down, you can break them off, they keep coming back. And I don't know if you can see it here, but we kind of got a line of dogwoods right here, because this bank in the winter is full of boat lifts, docks, and fishing boats turned upside down. So all of these things survive that as well.
Well, Mark, this looks like it's been very well planned with all the unique plants that are here and the shapes and the colors and so forth. So you had the DNR give you that plan.
Right.
But on this level up here, I see these are non-natives.
They are. And you know what? Crean really is the person that knows all about this stuff.
Yeah, we want to talk about that snowball hydrangea and a couple of the others and how they made that transition from non-natives to the natives. Well, Mark, I want to take this opportunity to thank you for telling us about this unique beds that you have established here and the great cabin you have.
Well, my pleasure. Anything I can do to promote this kind of shoreline management, I'm all for it. So thank you for coming in.
Okay, well, let me go find Kareem.
All right.
Well, hi, Kareem. What you doing?
Well, hi. I'm taking a few deadheads off.
Well, a never-ending task, isn't it?
That's very
Especially
true.
with non-natives.
Yes, that's
And I
very
see
true.
you have some up on the top of the hill. Should we go take a look at some of them?
Let's do that.
Good. Kareen, one of the challenges I would think of having two homes, one in the Twin Cities and in your cabin, is that you got a set of favorite flowers there and you can't leave them.
True.
Is that what happened here?
Yes, I had to divide things and bring it up here as we progressed into more landscape work. And yeah, I've taken some of the favorite ones and put them in the row leading down to the wildflowers. the hydrangea is a good one to bring, and there's a continuous color throughout the season. I like to always look at some kind of flowers. Yeah, this just goes all season long.
And so, why did you decide to put this as the initial before you got into the native plants?
Well, the wall separates the two, and I thought it would be a nice transition just to have from the other flower gardens around the cabin, one last look at some planted ones, and then the wild ones take over.
And it looks like they're all perennials, so minimal care needed.
Yes, it's an easy way to go, yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about this zebra grass. Why did you put that in there?
Possibly to do a little contrast, to see what happens. I'd never had it before, and it's taking over. I need to divide it or maybe pull it, I'm not sure. It always has a little white and green color, so it's a background to some of the pinks and purples that are here. But I understand it can move to places you don't want it to.
Very nice. Well, sitting on your deck, which is 10 feet away, you must have color here all season long.
Exactly. Yeah, purples and yellows, and it just keeps going. Something different coming into bloom all the time.
Now, this native area, what kind of maintenance is required?
You know, we have it's low maintenance. We weeded in the spring when some of the grasses were in there that we didn't want. A couple of weeds or some clover started in, and we pulled those out. And at this time of year, the ground is covered. There's no way that weeds can really grow. And so once you've done your weeding, I think it's going to be very easy, low maintenance. It's always,
I like that word, low maintenance.
That's right.
I'd rather sit on the deck and enjoy it than being in the native area pulling weeds. Huh?
That's true.
So you do that very early in the spring,
yeah.
When you can make a distinguish between the various plants?
Yes, and it's not so dense then. It's still coming in.
And is the DNR available the first year or two to help you identify what is the weed and what is plant that you should be keeping?
Yeah, that's been very helpful. Lindy Ekola came out and told us exactly which ones to pull, and it wasn't a lot, but it certainly would have made a difference if we hadn't done it. So doing that, she's been wonderful. Any questions that we have, she just is right there to answer them.
Well, Corrine, you've done a beautiful job of stabilizing this bank and eliminating that horrendous task of mowing and dangerous task, I should say. And what have you done on the other side of the house to enhance that?
Oh, well, there was nothing on that side at first, so we started by transplanting all of the plants from the bank to the other side of the house so we didn't lose them. And also we put in a rain garden.
Oh.
So,
can we go look at that?
Sure, let's do it.
I have a question. I was thinking about getting a chainsaw for some easier maintenance. Can you give me some basic safety and maintenance tips?
Well, yes, we do use chainsaws at the Minnesota Landscape Arboretum, and we use them minimally. Most of the time when we're out pruning, we use hand saws, folding hand saws, or pole saws from the ground. But on occasion, we do need to use chainsaws, and we do use them. First and foremost, you have to have a sharp chain. The chain needs to be properly sharpened and adjusted with the sharp blade and the properly adjusted breaker. The chain needs to be adjusted properly as far as tension or tightness, so that when the chain brake is off, you can still move the chain freely, but you can't lift it out of the groove too far. The next thing we go through is just proper starting procedure. We see a lot of people still kind of starting the chainsaw, just flopping the chainsaw around like this. What we want to see people do is lock the chainsaw in their legs and then pull on it so that the chainsaw itself is always under control. Once we have the chainsaw running, we want to make sure that we're cutting with the back portion of the chain only. We don't want to see people cutting with the tip. The tip is where the incidence of kickback, it's called, where the chain will get gripped by the wood, or the cutting surface will dig into the wood, and it will fling the chain back toward the person. We always want to make sure that we have our thumb locked underneath the bar, and the bar and the hand in a position where if the bar were to ever kick back, it would activate the chain brake automatically. The last thing is, and maybe the most important thing, is having proper equipment. As you can see, I'm all suited up. I have a hard hat on with a visor. I have the face mask here. I have ear protection. I have additional ear protection with earplugs in my ears, and I have Kevlar chaps on as well. So we want to see people safe in their gardens, in their yards, etc. Chainsaws are a common piece of equipment, and we want to see them used safely.
Ask the Arboretum Experts has been brought to you by the Minnesota Landscape Arboretum in Chanhassen, dedicated to enriching lives through the appreciation and knowledge of plants.
Well, Corrine, this looks wonderful. You transplanted all of these from the other side of the house?
Yes, we did.
So that's 2 years of growth?
Right. We put in a lot of good soil at the beginning. We mulched the plants, of course. We have a border to keep things in the right place. And it's turned out fairly well.
Well, I'm very impressed. Well, you're Russian sage.
Yeah, it's coming along nicely. We've had some wind and so forth, so it's not standing like it probably should. And some of the bee balm is a little bit askew too, but it's coming along.
Well, we've had a lot of storms this particular summer with strong winds, and
That's true.
it's amazing how many flower beds are looking as good as they are.
Yeah, that's right.
And I see we got our favorite zebra grass in here.
Yes, we do. I thought it might be a nice backdrop, but it's taking over, and we need to thin it out and control it a little bit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I noticed that the plants have been lowered by the wind a little bit, but the rain doesn't seem to have affected them too bad. Why is that?
No, we have a special rain handler eave trough system. It's not actually an eave trough. It disperses the rain when it runs off the roof so that it waters all the plants. It's another lazy way out of watering.
I see. And so that, in effect, creates a water garden for you. All that water coming off the roof is dispersed over a wider area, so it goes in the ground?
That's right, yeah.
And
It works very well.
It does, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I've never seen it in actual, during a rainstorm. What's the effect? How does it work?
It looks like a sprinkler system. It just spreads it all over, and that's why we can get about an 8-foot wide garden on this side. Probably that helps a lot, just especially when we're not here. If it's raining, it's watering our garden while we're not here. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Well, very good. We'll have to look into that.
There's black-eyed Susans and potted plants here. We've mixed it all up, and I was hoping to get a clematis to grow up my bicycle, but hasn't happened yet. I'll keep trying.
Yeah. Well, there may be some other little viney plant that could overtake it.
Exactly.
Is that bike in retirement?
I think it is. It's just an ornament.
I see. I see. And you've got a potted plant here. It looks like you've dug something out. What's the new plan?
Oh, yes. Well, the marigolds are easy to grow. Gives you some color from the road. You can see it. And those, well, there was a shrub that we didn't want, so we took that out. And until we decide what to put in there again, the marigolds are babysitting for us.
I see. Well, Corrine, I see you got a potted plant here. What happened here?
Oh, well, we had a wild dogwood take over, and it was getting much too high. So we took it out, and we're going to put something in that isn't quite as tall. I've heard that you should never plant tall things or things that get tall in front of your windows. For security reasons, people can't hide in tall bushes. So, I think that's a nice, helpful hint to take into consideration when you're planting.
Yeah. I see you do have another dogwood there. It's not close that, you know, if it eventually got a little taller, it might allow someone to hide behind it and break into that window.
Yes. It's better to keep it trimmed down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what other colors do you have in this particular garden?
Well, I'm thinking that we have way too much yellow. I'd like to change out the color a little bit and plant some other things. As you can see, we've got the brown-eyed Susans, the yellow daylilies, and yellow yarrow in there. I think we can start transplanting some to another garden and put in some other colors. Good trip to the store will take care of that.
Exactly. And I see that you've created a couple window boxes. I suppose you go to town and you just got to buy a couple annuals every year.
Yes, of course, and we change them out every year. We have something different all the time. But again, you can pick your color there, and it's for one season only. So that's a good chance to get some different colors. And you can mix potted plants in with your plantings, and that gives you a little color like the geranium. It's a work in progress. We're always changing things around and transplanting, and I think it will eventually be a really nice garden.
Well, as any true gardener knows, you're never completely satisfied.
Yeah, you're never done.
Besides, we got to keep the nursery in business.
That's right. Yeah,
So,
and it's fun.
exactly, exactly. And there's always new plants, and you know, we have the natives and they have their place, but here we want some of those specialty plants that've been bred to develop unique colors and shapes.
That's true. That's very true.
Well, you've done a wonderful job here, in your rain spreader up there obviously waters this whole bed very nicely.
It sure does. Makes it easy.
Karina, I want to thank you for taking the time to show us your beautiful gardens and those native plants on the edge of the water. Beautiful job that you've done over the last 2 years.
Come back anytime.
Closed captioning is provided by Mark and Margaret Yackel Julien in honor of Shalom Hill Farm, a nonprofit rural education retreat center in a beautiful prairie setting near Windham in southwestern Minnesota. Shalom Hill Farm, shalomhill.org.